Hello, Somerset County. My name is Chris Edwards. I'm proud to host this edition of the Scoop podcast. Before we get to our program today, I want to thank our three supporting sponsors for not only sponsoring the podcast, but helping put together the podcast studio here at the partnership. I want to thank our partners at Techie Geek, Unity Bank, and Robert Wood Johnson University Hospital Somerset for sponsoring Season 2 here of the Scoop podcast. And our episode today is going to be focused on what we're calling the local media experience. And my guest is Bill Chambers. He's the Senior Director of Business Insights and Strategy for Optimum Media, with over 35 years of experience in what we're calling the local media field. Bill, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. This is a great opportunity. I really appreciate it.
No, I'm excited because I think this is one we... At the partnership, obviously, we're doing a form of marketing for our members, and I think this is something our members are interested in. Any type of time we do an event that is in marketing, which is a lot, we always get high interest in. But before we get into the nuts and bolts, can you talk? Optimum has some different names over the period, and probably our members are familiar with Optimum from probably number of different angles. So you talk a little bit about the company and the role you play?
Yeah, sure thing. Yes, we have gone through some changes. The artist formerly known as Cablevision, but change is constant, right? That's the only constant in our lives. Things are always changing, and I love the direction that we're going at. We are Optimum. My division, Optimum Media, is a subset of Optimum. Optimum itself is a connectivity company. They're a pipeline. Yes, at a time when cable was the new thing, we provided cable service that gave consumers tons of choices to engage with their, sports and news and entertainment. But then in the 90s, things exploded. Genres, cooking shows, right? Home improvement shows, flip shows, reality, all of it. And so we've expanded. And as technology's expanded and driven change, we've kind of followed along with that. And Optimum Media, as a part of Optimum, the advantage is leveraging first-party data and connectivity, but we also have a big family. We own News 12. Hopefully you guys are familiar with News 12
Absolutely,
in New Jersey and all the ways that consumers, we've seen a paramount change in how people are consuming and getting that news. They haven't gone away. They've just expanded, and it's growing because the screens have grown. We also have our own proprietary mobile platform. We have an agency nationally, so we're doing a lot of things in the world of media.
Yeah. I was, I was thinking before we started, I don't even have a box in my house, and a couple of months ago, my router went down, and I tried to do everything manually at home. And then eventually, I'm on the phone, and they're like, "You got to bring it into the Optimum store." And I'm like, "Oh my God, I haven't done that in a decade, right?" Yeah. And that used to be the calling card. And I think that's just a microcosm of how your organization has evolved over the years. And I think I want to start there, just before we get into the local media landscape. Like, how do you view the landscape today, just in terms of media? I think one of the things our members struggle with is most companies know they need to do marketing, but there's just such an overwhelming amount of options, especially in the digital world. How do you view the landscape today?
Yeah, it's fragmented, and the main driver of that is technology. Technology has provided so many choices for consumers now. Prime time has become my time. Back in the day, if you wanted to watch, Rudolph during Christmas, you had to be there that Tuesday night at 8 o'clock. And now, you could stream it, look it up, and find where you can engage with that, right? That's what's driving change. I think in the marketplace, pipelines, because of all the activity, it's really started during the pandemic.
Right. Yep.
People are stuck at home. They're looking for various ways to engage and entertain themselves, and it's really taken off from there, and it hasn't slowed down. Getting access to content, professional, the stuff we used to love, movies, sitcoms, things like that. They're all growing, and then you have entities like Amazon and Netflix, and there are over 15,000 titles on Netflix alone. And then when you factor in the creator economy, which everybody's talking about now, everybody's creating content and creating reels and having their own YouTube channels that are advancing into what they're calling fast channels, free ad-supported streaming. If you have a Samsung TV, a Vizio TV, there are all these channels now.
Yep.
And everything is morphing and migrating to that. And consumers have so many choice. I mean, gone are the days of the mass audience for the finale of, Cheers or
Yep.
MASH or even Friends, right? But you still have your big events like the Super Bowl, but even that's more fragmented thanks to partnerships and access and streaming. All of these things have a value. We see it, right? We just went through a situation where we had a really rough winter, right? We got pounded this year. My daughter just graduated from Tampa and came home. I said, it's her fault because, she was down in the warm weather for 4 years. We had to, get her used to winters. But what we noticed is live news, live sports, they still have a place. And people still go to what we call that appointment TV. But everybody today is questioning what is TV. To me, it's the device you watch, right? It's the content and how you access that content is what changed. And whatever your flavor, right? One man's trash is another man's treasure. My wife loves listening to the Reddit stories and, the making up of this one did this or Ryan's Roses. There are so many different ways, and she can do it on 3 screens at the same time now. So really that has been the biggest change. All different forms of content, engagement. There's so many choices for consumers, and that can be confusing for business owners because where do I go?
Right. Yeah, I think that's the key to all this is the where do I go. So, kind of drilling that down into more local level, right? There's as I mentioned before, I think a lot of companies members know that hey, I need to do something to grow my brand, my outreach, and that's the other thing too. It's not just marketing is kind of a catch-all, but there's many different verticals within there. Where would, with all the change and the rapid change, where would a small business that's looking to kind of I'm just going for increase their brand visibility, right? Maybe not even micro-targeting a certain section, just like, hey, I need to get my brand out there more. Yeah. What would you kind of suggest are those first steps, or maybe what are some things that are in the local landscape that might be different than a 10,000 foot level?
Yeah, well, for me, it's all about strategy. I mean, today in this day and age, there really isn't a lot of exclusivity. I mean, yeah, we have News 12 and we have partnerships that others don't, but that's part of the conversation. But we don't get into product. What we try to focus in on strategy. That's the reason why the division I created 5 years ago, Business Strategy and Insights, I modeled it. We're called by our team BSI. And I modeled it after the TV show CSI, Crime Scene Investigators, because, media today, it seems like we got to try to navigate through and figure out, what happened here. Yeah. And that's what we are here for. We just did a big presentation that we're rolling out and doing at different events called Finding the High Side, because there are a lot of highs and lows and wrinkles in media. The low side is what we're all suffering from: confusion, fragmentation, people pitching us products all the time. And there's too much focus and pressure on what we call the bottom of the funnel, those short-term tactics. Right. But you can't stack short-term to equal long-term. Right. The brands that do it successfully have a blueprint. And that's what my team focuses on in support of our sales organization, is to try to educate business owners to show how it's done and then scale it to your geography, your backyard, your goals, to be able to leverage data, which is expensive, right? And the Nielsen company is $1 billion company for a reason, because people pay them for their insights, and there are many other research companies out there that are trying to get their foot in the door. But because technology is so fragmented, viewership so fragmented, they still really didn't accurately figure out cable, let alone with all these choices of streaming. So our role is really to educate our clients on the long and the short of it, using examples, using data, talking strategy. What are your goals? What problem can we help you solve or overcome? Because everybody wants leads, right? It's generating leads, quick qualified leads, but not just quick leads, but qualified leads. And a lot of times things are so confusing that business owners don't know how their setup works. And a lot of things can be a detractor, especially with Professor Google, if you don't have consistency in your messaging, patterns, colors, fonts, phone numbers, positioning. All of these things are very difficult for business owners who really just don't have the luxury of having a CMO, right? There was a study by Burrell They're a local research company, and over the summer, it was very eye-opening to me that 59% of local business owners have no idea what the right budget is.
Right. Yep.
Not only not knowing what budget is, but they don't have a marketing person to help them. Another 3 out of every 5 don't even have a marketing person. So over 80% of these owners are doing it on their own. And there are pressures, right? Our job is to sit down and be strategic, help them overcome, and help them in areas where, yes, paid media works, but we also make a lot of recommendations to people before we even get started and things that we don't get paid on, because we want to make sure that they're set up for success.
Right.
That's the key.
Well, it seems like, we hear this a lot too, because we work with a lot of very small businesses, and we go, well, what is your marketing budget? And a lot of the answer is, well, my marketing associate is my marketing budget, right? So they're hiring someone but giving that person no tools to market, or the vice versa, right? Where maybe they've done some advertising, but there's no one that's, from a development or a marketing side that's, churning that into qualified leads. They're kind of looking for the marketing to do that, which is a tough task. It's like missing a step, right?
Absolutely. And it's a challenge too. Experience is key. I mean, I am definitely a little bit older. Yeah, I've been doing this for 35 years, but that experience means something. I've already been through a huge disruption of our industry when cable became a disruption to broadcast viewing. Yep. And everybody was like, oh, well, what's going on here? Well, it's just you give consumers the freedom of choice and opportunity to engage with what they want to engage in. That's what they do. And, being a part of all the measurement companies and strategies and supporting sales and hearing what they are hearing and having these conversations. When I went from the interconnect and full market national to local, my eyes were really open, because it's a challenge. There are pressures there. You don't have the luxury of having exorbitant budgets. So we have to make sure that everything you're doing, we're preparing you correctly for that blueprint for success. And more times than not, you'll find out that things aren't as expensive as you think they would be, but you have to make the right investment, because there are things like trust. Consumers trust things psychologically, right? They pay attention to things differently. And there are all different types of study. And the team will tell you, I am reading hundreds of studies and trade articles every day to try to educate myself, and then dissect it, bring it down. And as technologies in data and gathering and things like artificial intelligence, but you have to be able to prompt it with real data and position it with accuracy and sourcing, because, again, it is the wild, wild west out there.
It seems like your team, your BIS team, is they're like almost like forensic business advisors, right? Like you're kind of going in at the ground floor of, well, what's your strategic plan, right? Like, are you going in at that level and trying to kind of extract from the business, well, what are you actually trying to do here? Is that what you find with most of your clients?
Yes, that was the whole pitch to my organization 5 years ago, is we need a strategy and insights team.
Right.
We need to go above and beyond, because at some point, everybody's just going to look at you either as a price commodity, or too many people are out there pushing product. We want to be different. We want to get to the root of the problem. As a matter of fact, my teammate, the gentleman who I first hired to develop this team, his name is Tom Parsons. He just wrote a book called Lead or Bleed, and it became instantly a bestseller on Amazon. And it is that blueprint. It's being able to explain to clients to cut through the noise, to focus on your problems. How can I help generate more qualified leads? One of the things we talk about is so much focus on the short term. A great analogy he uses in the book is, if you're a football fan, right, you know about the tush push, right? Yep. Famous play. Everybody, it's tush push, works all the time, right? Yeah, right? The city of brotherly shove, right? Yep. Well, but I ask you, if you ran the tush push every play, would it be successful?
Absolutely not.
There's a time and a place, right? You're on the goal line, you're 4th and inches, but you're 4th and 5, you're not doing the tush push.
Yep.
You need an offense. You need a defense. You need a run game, a pass game. You need a strategy. You need coaching. You need studying. That is what my team does. Yep. The team that I am a part of. And Tom really took it to the next level, because what he wanted to do is he wanted clients to read the book, to open an opportunity to see that there is something different out there. If you really do strategize, work within your find your gap, right? What is the value of a customer to you? And how many more customers can you take on? Because let's be honest, advertising's worst nightmare is a bad customer experience.
Oh, yeah.
So we have to make sure that everything you're promoting and promising in your messaging, there's nothing like the power of video. I know everybody talks about this one's the best. And listen, I think all forms of media work, right? Word of mouth is still the most popular, but technology has helped word of mouth.
Yep.
People share things with what they see on Reddit or, stories that they, come across. And that's just a whole new platform of word of mouth. But the experience in live news, live sports, trusted high-profile production units, and the creator economy that you're interested in, all of these things provide a value, but the ability to tell your story in video to build confidence and then have all the surrounding pieces together to really show the growth. Don't worry about the vanity metrics. Look at the metrics that matter to you the most. Are we increasing direct searches for you? Right? AI is changing the game now. You had SEO is turning into GEO.
Right.
And that limited space is even getting more limited and things.
Right.
I used to joke around and say, nobody's found Jimmy Hoffa because he's on page 8 of Google.
Right.
Nobody goes beyond page 1, but now it's going beyond the first 7 listings because it's becoming more challenging with that real estate.
Oh, yeah. We see it all the time in the tourism side of our house is people are on itinerary-based travel, right? So long gone are the 60-page books that list all the restaurants in an area, right? Like people want to go, okay, I got 36 hours on this trip down to the shore, and I'm going with 2 kids, or maybe it's a couples retreat. Like, give me a sample vacation in that time period. So whatever that's spitting out on the other end, your business has to be in there, or at least in the ball game, if that's the way people are kind of searching now, right? And I think that obviously is a little bit of frightening, but I also think it's a huge opportunity for a lot of all of our businesses here in Somerset County. What are so we say we have company X that knows they're going through the process. They know they want to increase their marketing and advertising. What type of mindset should they have? When they come to you, or maybe when they're at that point of, okay, I'm ready to make this type of investment?
Well, that's where the Q&A comes into play. We talk about customer needs analysis, right? We will do things behind the scenes to make sure how is their reputation, right? How are their reviews? How are they placed? Do a Google search, make a phone call, stop by, look at the appearance. Once we have all of the things in place, we try to be very pointed in what they're trying to accomplish. How long have you been around? What's your presence? Right, and we'll analyze these things. We'll go and look and see. Oh, they're buying billboards. What's their billboard look like? Do they do radio? Is their message consistent? We try to get our sales teams to come up with key questions to really get into the nuts and bolts of what it is that they're trying to accomplish for their business. Awareness is huge. Awareness is trust. And if you can get somebody to type in the name of the business instead of saying, I'm looking for a home improvement guy to come and help me in this region. Everybody's vying for that. You got aggregators, keywords, everybody's buying words, right? It's very competitive. But if well, I want to go to Somerville Aluminum, boom,
Right.
Okay, or Ballare, boom, name changes, getting that name out there from what was to what is. Now people know and they're directed to look directly for that particular client gives an advantage. So what we try to do is saturate that balance of the long and the short. Right? Don't put everything into the short term. Let's have a long-term strategy in trusted environments. Let's get your video out there where your audience is. If it's a younger audience, let's put them on YouTube. One of the greatest things that I'm so proud of being a part of my company is we've made investments in partnerships. We understand the changing dynamic and the landscape. People don't watch, television through a cable box anymore, but they're watching it through apps.
Right.
So we've been very diligent in forming partnerships with basically every provider that's out there. We partner with Netflix, with Amazon. Not only do we have all things Amazon with Prime Video and their subscription video service and Twitch, but having access to the Amazon Prime database. Now you're talking.
Right.
Being able to drill in, use first-party data like we have, so we know people that are heavy news viewers who watches News 12 every day, who still watches live sports, who watches entertainment, to take that contextual insight and know-how and then apply it to all the different partnerships that we have with YouTube. And we partner with YouTube's main platform, again, for trust and validity. And we want to make sure we're insulating ourselves on every screen that's out there, even digital out-of-home billboards. We have a partnership where we can offer that. We really want to truly be that one-stop shop, to be that easy button for our business owner because they have so many pressures, so much stress, and what do I do? leave the heavy lifting to us. We will be that financial consultant, if you will, right? Why do we go to financial planners? Why do we go to doctors?
Right.
Not
Someone we
everybody
trust.
listens, right? I tell them, stop smoking, don't eat pizza, and they walk out, and the first thing they do, light up a cigarette.
Give
We
them
can't control
give
that.
me a day or two, then I'll go back to
right?
pizza.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we try our best to be truly consultative, to be that trusted partner, and to optimize. It's not setting it and forget it. A lot of these self-serve platforms, well, we talked about it earlier. Business owner doesn't have time, and they don't know what they're doing. Oh yeah, $500. Let's put it in. Oh, it didn't work. Well, gee, I wonder why that is.
Right.
Let's truly take a look. Like we have census data. We create heat maps. We can use Claritas, Experian data to truly hone in and identify who it is you're trying to reach, when you're trying to reach them, and then come up with a well-balanced campaign that focuses a little bit on the long and a little bit on the short. And every industry is different. We've studied over 1,000 campaigns, and the balance we've found that's most successful is 60% long-term, 40% short-term. But there are different businesses. Immediacy, it might be more 80-20, or the inverse could be 30-70, depending on how fast the message. But there's a foundation of trust to be that go-to, and then work on messaging other opportunities.
No, and I think that's the huge takeaway I have in these types of conversations, and certainly what I want our members to think about is, yes, those days of the large television viewing experience are gone for the most part, outside of maybe football, right, and the Olympics, a couple of other things. But if you think about what it would have cost that company to advertise to one of those big television events to a huge audience, it's astronomical. How many of those viewers are really potential clients? And what you can do now is kind of micro-target specific industries. I'm looking for business owners in Somerset County, right? Like that. Yeah. That's a huge advantage for a business. Besides this kind of just throw the large net and see what swims into it mentality. And I think that's really. I think that to me is the opportunity. Is that what you kind of see from your angle?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That is the opportunity. Yeah. Everybody's unique in their challenges. Even if it's a business in a similar industry, there might be certain nuances that that you could capitalize on and grow on. One of my favorite quotes of all time comes from Mark Twain, right? A spider weaves its web over the doorway of a business that doesn't advertise because it will live a life of undisturbed peace.
Right.
You have to create that buzz. And again, there's a lot of trust is a big factor, right? I mean, how many times do you get an ad on your phone, and if you have no familiarity with it, are you going to click on it?
Right.
More times than not, the answer is no. But if you have that trust, that familiarity, oh yeah, I see them on News 12, or I saw them when I was watching my favorite sporting event or my favorite show. All of these things are changing. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Yep. I mean, cable, if you remember back when it first launched in the late 70s and early 80s, was a subscription base. You get your television content free of commercials. Yep. And that was the buzz. Didn't last very long. Yeah. Why? Because as the demand grew, you had to deliver. You have to produce shows. You have to get content. And we're seeing that now. Look at Netflix, right? Netflix is growing because they are now ad-supported. In the beginning, they weren't. Yep. And there were many, and people still have options, but what we're discovering is people are nowhere near as adverse to advertising as we assume they are. Right. They're willing to accept ads for that lower tier. And that's why having partnerships in place to be able to, serve wherever anyone's going with consistency, have the right plan of distribution, work with our teams. Like, we have a very vast support team behind us. Yes, we're up front with Team BSI, and we're going to help come up with the plan. But when we hand the plan to the salesperson and they, get the signature and work out the fine details that we all strategically discussed, we have an operational team, a customer success team, our own programmatic buying team. I mean, back in media, businesses would have everybody come in. You'd have your print rep come in, your radio, and everybody would give a pitch. We're doing that with digital companies. What's the value? What's the inventory you have? What type of supply that you have can connect to our deterministic pipeline, and then through those partnerships to be as complete as we can as a partner to reach consumers wherever they are in trusted environments, even in mobile. we found a huge amount of people love playing games, right? Words with friends and card games and paint by numbers. And when you look at it, you think, who's doing that? But when you look at the data and you see there are millions and millions of dollars being transacted programmatically in these environments, it's because that's what people are doing. You have to have a person on the other end of receiving it, where in the past with television, you didn't know, right? Nielsen provided estimates of viewing, right? And it was good from the top down, and you're buying a market. But to your point, if you're trying to reach somebody here in Somerset County, a business, that's our advantage. We're the pipeline. We can tell you through every connectivity point what people are doing, and let's plan around that.
Well, I think that's, I was laughing because I was thinking about, it's baseball season, and not only are the players have logos on their jersey of sponsors, but now the stadiums have, you can't get a part of the wall in the outfield.
Backdrop,
it's
behind
everywhere.
every pitch it changes, right?
Yeah, and I think that's, this will lead into my last question, but I think that's the importance of having, kind of a trusted marketing advisor, and it seems like that's what you're really building out at Optimum. How would our members, they want to take that next step and get in touch with your team? What would be the next steps to do that?
Hit us up. I mean, we have a very strong sales team here in New Jersey. My recommendation is, trying to join these types of chamber companies. Like, we come here as a part of it's a great partnership that we formed. We try to, get time to come here and show businesses what we can do. Like I said, over the past 2 years, we've created presentations, cheat codes of successful brands, or the 7 secrets that the big brands don't want you to know about, or finding the high side, which is the one we just created. It's just a great way to get people entertained. I treat it almost like stand-up, my poor wife and my kids, but I use them as my sample points. This is what we do, and it resonates with, oh yeah, my wife does that too, or yeah, my kids do that too. But educating them in forums such as what you guys, I think Chamber of Commerce is just so important for local businesses. And the ability for us to have an opportunity to partner with you, come in and just help, throw it out there. I mean, give us a chance. I know a lot of people are jaded, it didn't work or whatever. Well, there are reasons for that. We really focus on technology, our pipeline of data, the investments that our company has made to have these partnerships, because we have the infrastructure. Now let's help them grow. Let's strategically plan, what are your goals? How is it working? What can we do differently? Make sure everything is consistent for things that you're going to pay us for and things that we're not going to get paid for, because we have to make sure they're set up for success. And really just the outreach, reach out to Optimum Media, the team, and let's start a conversation.
Yeah, and I want to thank Optimum Media for being one of our newest cornerstone investors this year. So for our members that are looking for some of that content you just mentioned, we'll be doing that in the Business Hub throughout 2026 and into 2027. Bill, I want to thank you so much for joining us today's edition of the Scoop podcast in Somerset County until we upload again.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to those the follow-ups with you guys.
It's going to be. I already wrote down a couple of event titles, so it's going to be great.
It's going to be great, and thank you so much for having us. The opportunity to kind of spread the word out there for people. That's what we're all about. So thank you.
Awesome. Our pleasure.
Great.
And again, thank you. And like I said, Somerset County, we'll put the contact information up there for Optimum, but also feel free to reach out to my team as well. All right.
Terrific.
Thank you very much.